Welcome to Cove, Wellbeing and the My Trauma, Your Trauma series with me, Owen Morgan. I want to share my trauma journey and that of others. We will also look at the world of trauma healing, support and research, including guests who specialise in helping those overcome their trauma. My Trauma, Your Trauma is here to explore human experience. Welcome to Trauma Chat, where we invite on a guest to talk all things trauma. Please watch and listen with care. Some of this content may be triggering or may make you feel uncomfortable, so do press that stop button and take a break. Always put yourself first. I'm a mental health advocate sharing my lived experience. I'm also a massage therapist, a wellness audiobook addict, and a stepdad to my amazing 4-year-old. I've interviewed hundreds of wellness experts and people with stories of overcoming their wellness struggles. I myself have suffered with childhood abuse from childminders, severe school bullying, a deep depression in my 20s, and blackout anxiety, plus a life-threatening illness in my early 30s. I want to give a voice to those who can inspire others to improved wellness. Now, I'm super duper excited today. We recently connected. I'm so excited to bring him onto the show. I'm here with Ravi Rothenberg. I got it wrong the first time and I've got it wrong again, but I'm sure he will forgive me. He is a trauma-informed yoga teacher and facilitator. He has been traveling the world, taking part in numerous meditation retreats and becoming a qualified yoga instructor in India, which has awakened Ravi to a much deeper sense of peace and calmness within himself. It has given him the tools that he now wants to share with the world. Ravi, meaning light of the sun. How beautiful is that? Love that. Welcome, Ravi. This is take 2. How are we today?
We are so good, still good. Thanks for having me, and I've already forgiven you for butchering my last name, but it's great to be here.
Yeah, the thing with me is I pronounce exactly as I read, so it can get me in tricky waters at times. But it's I always had that problem in school, pronunciation, and it was like that was the thing I really struggled with. So it doesn't hinder me too much, so it's fine. Anyway, I just want to thank you so much for all the support you have given me. And I know we're part of a social media support group kind of setup, and it's been very special to share that. I just want to thank you so much for, facilitating so much space for other wellness gurus, I guess.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Like I said earlier, just thrilled that it's taking off the way it is, and adding the value that I thought it might. So always good when it pans out as expected.
Yeah, exactly. Like we mentioned earlier on, it just feels special to be around, people who kind of been where we've been, going where we're going, and have a real passion to match to, and it feels very special. And thank you, because it feels really nice to have people I can reach out to, business or personally. So thank you for creating that for us.
Yeah, happy to.
Great stuff. So we're going to talk about a little bit about your story, a little about your work. I got very excited when I saw you on Instagram with the trauma-informed yoga side, something we haven't covered yet. So I'm really excited to talk about that today. But before we do that, we just do a little get to know you section. So how has this crazy old 2020 been for you so far?
Yes, it has been just that crazy and not old. Actually, I would say crazy new 2020. Really, everything feels new. A year ago, I could not have imagined that life would be what it is right now, even despite the global pandemic and all the things that are happening in the US specifically. But yeah, 2020, I've spent a month in Mexico, a brief time in the States, and now I'm going on almost month 5 in India, which I'm here because of other plans that have totally taken a different course. And life is unfolding in mysterious and unexpected but beautiful ways.
That's amazing. So what drew you to want to do the traveling? What was kind of the starting point to make you want to jump on those planes and go and do that?
Yeah, actually, about a year ago today, I got back to Colorado, and where I was living at the time, and I got back from my long trip in India. And pretty quickly, I started thinking about, okay, how do I take this journey that I just had and share it with the rest of the world? And So in July of last year, I started planning a yoga and mindfulness retreat in Thailand. And it just so happened that the dates of the venue and the availability had me hosting this retreat in Thailand in May of 2020, specifically May 4th. So, this idea of May the 4th be with you, May 2020. The retreat was called Clarity 2020. And again, through yoga and mindfulness, it was going to be a chance for people to access their own inner clarity. And so, committing to this retreat in May in Thailand, that had me on this side of the world. And so, I figured I might as well come. Wanted to do more of India and other parts of Asia. And long story short, that's how I'm in India now. It was on my way to Thailand for this retreat. The retreat, unfortunately, was canceled due to COVID, but I'm committed to being still where I am and exploring the East as best I can.
Wow, that's amazing. And like you said, the year's taken a change of course, but by no means does that mean it has to be a bad one. It can open up many more opportunities, can't it, along the way?
Hmm.
That's the main thing.
Truly.
So
Yeah.
that kind of ties in with the question I was going to ask you anyway, which is kind of what you're up to at the moment. So from a kind of from I guess from a business perspective, from your yoga practice perspective, how does that look for you this year? How is that going to pan out for you from the yoga perspective anyway?
Yeah. Yeah. So right now, I'm leaning into aligning all of my gifts and what I've said, ascending to new heights, new heights in the evolution of me, really. And so currently, I'm teaching yoga online. I've got a few offerings each week on Zoom. And again, this is something that's new for me. I'm a recently minted yoga teacher. I don't have years of experience teaching, but I have years of experience practicing. And so, teaching yoga a couple times a week. I'm also uh, doing coaching. So, I've got a live your purpose approach, which is a trauma informed approach to life coaching. And again, slowly easing into that as it's new for me, but it's something that I'm really excited about and already seeing huge impact with a client.
That's amazing. And, as you, me both fully well know, the importance of holding a space, holding a safe space for clients, be it, the yoga or the coaching side. That's the key. And I think, you have your lived experience of years of doing it yourself, but the key really comes down to who you are as a human being and, helping and, so facilitating another human being. And that is what people are connecting with, aren't they, at the end of the day?
Totally.
Amazing. So I ask everybody the same question on this show. So I'm trying to think if I'm series three now. I've heard many answer to this. Always very beautiful. So for you, Ravi, what is your definition of trauma in your own words?
Yeah. So I was thinking about this before our call in a brief meditation, and what came through me is that trauma is the experience of any negative or harmful physical or emotional event that puts us in a state of dysregulation or immobilization without timely support and a safe path towards resolution. Um, yeah, so a lot to unpack there, but
Yeah, sorry, I
mhm,
just got a bit delay on this, but yeah, no, I really like what you said there about so often they say that it's an event that it isn't essentially processed in that moment, it isn't integrated into our experience, and follows through us. So you have multiple versions, multiple events along the way. It just starts to compound more and more, but then we have less ability to hold traumatic events. Then we have less window of tolerance, so it starts to grow and grow and grow to I think a lot of the mental health issues that we see. Would you say?
absolutely. Yeah, the when the event is paralyzing, when it isn't able to be resolved, when it leads to that dis-ease, right? That dis-ease in the mind, that dis-ease in the body, that's when disease and other ailments show up for us consistently and really make making forward progress in life quite difficult. Not ideal to have our systems working against us.
No, thank you for bringing up the disease bit. It's such a good way to look at that. It's such a good terminology for what people need to think about. And that ties into the safety thing again as well. If you're safe in your body, you're generally going to feel at ease. So, it all tends to tie together in the end, with that special word that we always often talk about.
Yeah.
So, from your own your own journey, have you suffered with any traumatic big T, little T traumas yourself, or had your own mental, emotional health challenges?
Absolutely. I am human, so I think we don't get through this human experience without without any T's, be it big or little. Um, but yeah, actually, one of my first memories as a child is actually a traumatic event. I was 4 years old, and I went sledding down in. I grew up in Wisconsin, and in the winter it's quite cold, and there's snow. And I was sledding at one of the local hills with my neighbor and his mom. And we were there not long. I think I had done one, walk up the hill, go down on the sled. And then on my second one, his mom went to push me down the hill. And little 4 year old me barreled into a frozen bale of hay. And I broke my leg. Um, And I very vividly remember that accident itself, the trip to the hospital. My mom or my other family members were not there when the incident happened. And so, I have memories of waking up in a hospital bed to family and support being there. Um, on one hand, there was safety and support, which is good, but it was this blunt force impact that, yeah, as a 4 year old, um, is not something that I had experienced before. And that would unfortunately be not the first time that I'd injure myself like that. So I've had a lot of physical traumas. I've broken over 10 bones and had four major reconstructive knee surgeries.
Wow.
Um, and so that's the physical side is, yeah, really from the age of 4 until 18, I was consistently hurting myself physically. Um, and then certainly have emotional trauma on top of that from some things related to my home environment. My parents both suffer from their own forms of addiction. And so the emotional stability at home was not always very stable. Um, and so a big part of my journey into wholeness and healing has been around um, reparenting and finding what's right for me.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm sure the your yoga must be helping a lot with this bone situation that you managed to get yourself in quite a few times, as in now, obviously. But yeah, that's interesting. You say, with your parents, with you observing, these behaviors around addiction. I guess as a kid watching that, it's going to have an impact on, because they say how much we mirror, don't we? We learn through mirroring from our parents how they behave and how they move. So was that for like that most of the duration of your life? Because I guess as a teenager, you mirror less, I guess, than when you're younger. So was that for most of the duration of your childhood?
It was. I was fortunate. I was the old. I have two younger sisters. I was the oldest of the three of us, and despite breaking my bones often, I was also very athletic and very involved in sports and extracurriculars. So I had a lot of exposure to what I would say were healthier environments, and I had a lot of support in getting access to sports and theater and things that brought me into a more expressive place where there was less of this traumatic environment. And I remember vividly, and my parents actually still say this to this day. They say, do as we say, not as we do. Which, as an adult, I have a lot of questions about a slogan like that being tossed around at home, because, as you mentioned, certainly we're as children we're mirroring what we're experiencing in our caretakers, um, and so some of those patterns have certainly showed up in my adult life. and it's been really a gift to bring awareness to them and be able to navigate an alternative way of doing things.
That's so wonderful that you had those, outside tribes, community, whatever you want to call them, for you to express yourself and to feel seen, heard, and understood. Time and time again, I hear people who have parents who maybe weren't emotionally available or just weren't physically around very often, but they tend to have someone they remember, like an auntie of theirs or a family friend, like was kind of like a mum. And they're really lovely stories. It's so nice to know that they did have someone that's super, super special. And I am so grateful to hear that you have the same situation, which is amazing. So kind of with this kind of the work that you're doing, and obviously you do have a passion for trauma, of course. So as you sort of came out of your childhood and went into the big bad world, where did your fascination with trauma come from then near the start?
It took years actually for trauma to show up for me in a professional curiosity. Um, for the almost the first 10 years out of college and my graduate studies, I wasn't doing anything related to this. I was working in advertising. I was working in the startup and the tech environment. I co-founded a natural food startup company. Um, but it wasn't until really the last year and a half that I committed to essentially taking an entirely different course, one that was more aligned with what my core was asking me to do. It was when I had a chance to really see and embrace transition. That's what brought me to India. That's what brought me to participate in this trauma informed yoga teacher training. Um, and it was through being in those experiences that I got a chance to really observe and reflect on my own experience. And it started feeling like I was at home, right? All the language that I finally had language to these things that I'd only felt or tried to interpret before. And I was around people that were doing this all day, every day for their entire careers. And um, and yeah, picking up things like the body keeps the score. And that was even, you know, I read that before I went on my journey. It just this idea of body and keeping the score. I was like, oh, I've got quite the score of my own. I'd like to see what this book is about. And then that just started opening up entire worlds around trauma, um, and worlds that really piqued my interest.
Yeah, well, I can certainly vouch for that book. That's for sure. I've listened to that because I obviously do audiobook listening. So I need to do it again, actually, just because it's so much in there that it takes more than one check in, I think. And we talk a lot about trauma informed on this show, just for the audience to kind of get an idea of that. Is that when we talk about being trauma informed, it's like you said, having a language and understanding of human experience, a kind of a sense of what happens through the trauma journey, and actually that alone can be quite shifting and quite healing, on some level, to understand these things. Once I got an understanding what was going on for me and where it may have come from, it opened up a whole new world right now in the present moment for me to go, wow, okay, I realize I'm reacting this way, or I realize that this is triggering me, or I realize this is giving me a glimmer, as Deb Dana would say. So you kind of start to see the world differently through deeper understanding of what's going on for you. And I just hope that somehow what you're doing, what we're doing with all of this, is going to facilitate some more of that informed wisdom, because I think that could change the world. Would you say?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, again, they're not teaching us this stuff when we're growing up. Um, and it's crucial to our success as individuals, as communities, as a species.
Yeah, certainly is. And I just feel so blessed to have gone on this journey like you with Body Keeps the Score. To become informed like that is, it just opens up a whole new way of existing, really, in our environment and the people around us. And it actually makes us feel more, I feel, for me personally, it makes me feel more compassionate towards other people, because I can see that what's going on for them in this moment with that behavior is beyond the behavior. It's much more to do with how they are in that space. And I find it's easier to be compassionate. Do you find that too, that it's easier to see people with a lot more deep compassion, I guess?
100%. Yeah, I think Deb Dana talks a lot about this in her work and how becoming more understanding of polyvagal theory, how that new lens brings compassion, and I couldn't agree more. It really, when you see that everyone is suffering and struggling with something, and that all of our behaviors are really just responses to our nervous system, that in itself can yeah, help bring more compassion and less judgment.
Yeah, because like as we know from what Stephen Porges and Deb Dana talk about is that so much of what's going on for us is this kind of guttural, visceral, responsive, way of being. And if we can understand that it's totally natural to be and behave the way we're behaving, perceived good or bad with inverted commas, it's just remembering that it's natural to respond the way we do, but how can you over time begin to see what that means and be able to live a life which is much more embodied and be able to start having that space between stimulation and reaction. I think for us, as humans, that could be a real shift for us. So, with the work that you do with your trauma informed yoga, how does trauma informed yoga look when you compare it to non trauma informed yoga, or is it much of the same, just with a deeper dive, maybe?
Yeah, yeah, great question. What is trauma informed yoga? So the way I explain it is that it's really an added layer of awareness. Um, when you think about yoga, people who are finding themselves on the yoga mat for their healing likely don't show up on day one saying, "Ooh, I'm here and I need to heal." Right? They show up, and this was my story too. Right? You show up because you're like, "Oh, I want more flexibility in my shoulders," or "I got this tight hip that I'm looking to work through." Right? And so it's this physical part that's what brings people to their yoga mats. But oftentimes it is the emotional, the spiritual healing that quickly shows up. And for me, that's what kept me coming back was the internal sense that I would get when I was on a yoga mat. And as you know, again, with more neuroscience coming out, we're learning that being embodied, being in a practice like yoga has so many benefits to somebody who's been traumatized. And so this layer of awareness is, specifically helps a teacher to navigate that and to show up in a way that is safe and supportive of people who are seeking yoga to to overcome or work through their traumas. And just briefly, when I started um, learning about trauma informed yoga, I didn't have much experience teaching yoga. And so I was questioning whether or not I even needed this extra layer of training. And quickly, the program that I enrolled in, they said, actually, we believe that what we're teaching is foundational for any yoga teacher. And so I quickly really embraced this idea of understanding trauma informed yoga.
Yeah, and thank you so much for that. And as we know, to move through the mental and emotional struggles and trauma histories is to be able to feel into what you're feeling, but being able to do that with relative safety. You can't just dive in there to all your trauma sensations and expect it to shift. You do have to do that in a facilitated, safe way. And so much of yoga is becoming embodied and sensing into your movements and how you are in the various poses that you may get into. And then obviously all the yoga I've done towards the end, you do down on the mat, palms up, and I found that very beautiful. But I often came out and had a little cry, little burst into tears when I first started doing it for the first few weeks,
Yeah.
as I was feeling stuff shifting and changing and moving around my body. And like you said, having that layer of trauma informed um, in there with the yoga instructing, that you are able to open up a space even more for people to uh, process whatever words you want to use, but just to hold there what's going on. They say about holding your suffering by no means is easy, but is part of the process. So you know does does that kind of resonate with you?
It does. It certainly resonates. And like what you were saying about being in those poses, for you it brings tears. Maybe it's at the end. in a shavasana like posture, but really there's a lot of yoga postures that have, somebody feeling very vulnerable. It's not exactly, if you've been traumatized or sexually abused, the idea of putting your hands down on the ground and your rear end up in the air may not be a position that feels so comfortable. And so it's having a sensitivity to that, maybe offering up different adjustments or even cueing the posture in a very different way from a traditional yoga class so that ultimately people can have a disconfirming experience, and feeling safe being in a posture like that. Whereas in the past they may not have. It could actually be quite triggering.
Yeah, thank you very much for that disconfirming, version of what had happened previously. That's such a powerful message too, and I guess even the space that you're in would play a part in that. So someone may want to sort of be in the class with you, but have no one behind them. They need to be able to see in front of them is another
Yes.
huge one, isn't it?
Exactly, and that's what going through a trauma informed program will do. It'll help you really see the full picture, so that everything from the setup of the room to the lights to the music to the communication before, during, and after class, all of that is with a new layer of sensitivity to again make it feel even safer for that population.
Thank you. So, is there an element of it too where, when someone walks in the room for the first time, that you're able to kind of get a sense through their eye contact, the prosody of their voice, their posture, the way that they may be moving quite frantically, maybe they're an anxious person. So, these are all things that you, even personally, that you like to kind of tap into when someone first arrives to work with you.
Definitely. I ideally even and I haven't worked in a studio setting so much, but there's this idea that somebody who's coming for the first time, they could even come to the studio in advance, do a walk through the space, really get familiar with it, so that when they show up for a class, all of their questions about the setup, about the lighting, um, are answered.
That's so true. Actually, just made me think about how you can go to, when you start in a new job and you've never been to the building, so you've got to go into this new building that you're unsure about, and then you've also got to meet all these brand new people. The anxiety that can come, the social anxiety that can come from meeting new people. But like you said, if I had the ability to walk around the workplace for a little while and get a sense of how the vibe is, it will make it much easier when I do start to meet the people, which in itself is a bit of a hurdle for so many when they start somewhere new. Like you said, I like that idea of being able to get a sense of the space, because at the end of the day, you're about to be in a room with lots of people you don't know. So having that awareness of the space prior to that makes it easier to be with those people. You feel more, yeah, safer in the environment.
Totally.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, we've asked this question before on a few of our shows. So, why do you feel yoga is so powerful for a mental and emotional recovery? Is it very much the process of becoming embodied and being in the more present moment?
It's a amazing question. There's a lot in there. Why do you feel yoga is so powerful? So yoga, as an ancient methodology, is really a system for ultimately being with and training the mind. Um, but to get to the mind, again, the yogis must have read the prelude to Body Keeps the Score, because they start with a body up approach, right? So in the eight limbs of yoga, limb number 3 is the asanas, the postures. Limb number 4 is pranayama, which is control of the breath. And then limbs number 5, 6, 7, and 8 are all about turning in the senses and getting to a place of focus and concentration more in our headspace. But it starts with the body. And so that's why you can have such a powerful emotional and mental clarity coming out of yoga, is because you've worked through the body to be even able to access that place. Um, and it's through that embodiment and that felt sense that then again you have access to what's going on upstairs.
Yeah, thank you. And we talk a lot about bottom up through the Manco various quotes that we're doing, but you think about it as that feedback loop too. So bottom up, top down. But like you said, starting with that bottom up gives you a much. I think it gives you much more a sense of self when you come into the body and how you're sensing your environment and what affects your nervous system and what nurtures it. And then the way you think and the stories you tell yourself can shift and change. And then you can start looking at, like you say, you create the space for your thoughts to flow through and move on. But you can get a sense of what are the recurring thoughts and why would they be recurring, and be able to kind of integrate this wholeness of ourselves and be able to be a compassionate observer of all we are and what we're doing and the perceived good and bad, just getting a compassionate observer sense of looking in from the outside in, which has definitely been my journey. It's been very, very beautiful. So do you find that?
I was going to say that idea of being a compassionate observer of yourself. I think we're quicker to give compassion to somebody else, but really, what I love about yoga is that it is a space for being compassionate with the self. A quote that I really love is that yoga is not about being able to touch your toes. It's about what you learn about yourself on the way down. And if we can show up to, working through our own stuff and finding our own flexibility, if we can show up with compassion for ourselves, then we have more compassion for others.
Yeah, I love that. I might have to remember that one for a future quote. I'll quote, because that's really, really beautiful in that sense. So we've covered quite a bit within the questions, but our next question was, how important it is to become embodied with our inner experience, and what does that look like? So from your own personal perspective, when you've been doing some what I like to call deep diving into your experience, um, what when you feel things come up, what do you do? I'm going to ask you this because it's a silly question, because we know that that isn't the right way to do it. But what do you do with that information that you get? I'm talking about you personally here with your practice. What do you do with the information that you feel in your body?
Yeah. So I want to give a specific example, actually, because I think this is a good place to be a bit vulnerable. Thank you for creating that space. Uh, on April 1st of this year, I learned of news that my best friend had passed away, that he had overdosed, and um, yes, he had passed away. And fortunately, I had spoken with him the night before. And so in that moment, when I learned of his passing, it was the morning time here in India. It was the evening back in the States. And I immediately felt the well of emotions running and rushing up through me. The need to be able to move them through us, or else they get stuck. We get disease. All these really traumatizing things can happen. And so, I think the biggest gift that yoga has given me is that ability to really quiet my mind, to tune in to what is the emotional state that I'm in, what are the qualities of that, and where do I need to move that energy. And so I did. I let my partner know kind of exactly, or a version of what was happening. It was hard for me to put into words because I knew I just needed to get into my body, into nature. Fortunately, I was in a space to do this, but it was really that embodiment of the emotions that were coming through. Instead of letting them take over my headspace, I let them run through my body, and um, I give yoga a lot of credit for being able to respond in that type of a way.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I'm sure many people, in their lifetime, hear this news of loved ones, and like you said, it can be a long term, grieving, traumatized event, really. And being able to know what you need in that moment is very, very powerful. And it's important to feel what we feel. They say that suffering is resistance. So if you're resisting your pain, if you resist your pain, you are more than likely going to suffer for that. And the hardest thing for us, as people to hold the space, is to understand that you do need what they would say, I don't know, a safety anchor. Peter Levine talks about pendulation quite a lot. So, moving towards your pain, but making sure that you have a safe space to return to. And we're talking from a body sense here more than anything. So feeling into your sorrow, but having a safe space in your body is a great way to anchor yourself so it doesn't become overbearing and therefore re-traumatizing. So it's, for me, I just share with you now, it's my hands. For me, my hands are my safe space. And when my partner, as a mindfulness teacher, first said to me, can you, when we're meditating together, she goes, can you sense somewhere that feels safe in your body? I remember telling me, and it blew my mind because I never had this kind of awareness before. I was like, holy shit, like I can't find anywhere. I couldn't find anywhere that felt safe. Like everything felt either anxious or heavy, heavy in a kind of dark depression sense. And I didn't know that until someone asked me to tap into somewhere safe. I was like, that's crazy. And then I was able to, over time, realize that my safest space is my hands. As a massage therapist, it's where my power
Well,
really resides.
yeah,
So I now have a very beautiful love for my hands. So no matter how crap I'm feeling, I'm able to pendulate between my pain and the safety of my hands. And I just want people to hear that, because it's not as simple as just, I'm going to lie there and feel all my pain. You do need anchors of safety. And does that come up in yoga? Are there certain um, ways of being within a session that they could tap into if they're starting to feel a bit uneasy?
it is. There's oftentimes a teacher will offer up a posture like child's pose, where if anything is becoming either physically difficult or emotionally difficult, finding yourself down in child's pose, and if that's triggering for you, because it can be, because your head is down, your arms are down, and you're really engaging into your hip crease with a full child's pose. So getting into shavasana, right, that corpse-like state at the end, where for a lot of people it's where you're savoring the juice of the practice, but it can also be just a safe place to find restoration and safety in the middle of a practice.
Yeah, it's very beautiful, and it's that sense of awareness too. I do quite like following my belly breath. So if I'm feeling that I'm a bit on edge and I'm starting my meditation, I'm like, am I in the right place to do this meditation right now? I know that that's where to go. I just follow the rise and fall of my belly. It feels super special to me. And sometimes I might even put a hand on my belly too, as it's happening, and that feels very special. But that took time. It took time in my meditation practice to get there. And I've, by no means can I rock out a silent retreat for a week, but you know,
Hey, you definitely could.
yeah, I'm sure my partner does them a lot as part of a mindfulness training. She has to do it every year, which is fantastic. So she goes away and does that. And when I pick her up afterwards, it's amazing seeing her, this beam of light, this full embodied human being that's released herself from.
It's such a gift that we don't give ourselves the time and space to retreat with intention. It's not exactly a part of our high-paced, fast-paced culture. Um, but when you imagine that you had your perfect day, just a day in the UK, you had time in nature, you got to give or get a massage, you had nourishing food, you were around community, you had a yoga practice and time to journal, and then now imagine doing that for 5 days in a row, having consistency and support, and it's such a nourishing space that if we give that gift to ourselves, it pays dividends time, tenfold.
Yeah, sounds amazing. I think maybe I should start myself off with a weekend retreat, which has a combination of a couple of hours meditation, like you said, then a massage, then a bit of this, and then work my way up to what my partner does, which is just a silent week. So you're just meditating basically all day, and it's a communal space. So you do all do a bit of gardening, and then some people will wash up. They kind of everybody looks after the center as they go through, which it sounds very special, very very special. And it, like we said before, it's kind of, what do you need in this moment, be it, emotionally, physically, food wise, what if you can tune into your body, into your being, and think, what can serve me in this moment to give me a sense of a healing sense of what's going on. Yeah. Anyway, I'm kind of mixing up all my words, but I'm sure people are getting a sense of what I'm talking about here. And I've tried to go on this pathway now of really sensing into what do I need in this moment that can best serve my nervous system, best serve my emotional state, my resilience, and that can happen in all forms of things you've just suggested. But yoga seems like such a powerful tool to get people there. So, speaking of body keeps the score, because we talked about that quite a bit today. What are your thoughts on how our body keeps the score, and how we carry that through with us? And Basil talks quite a lot in one of the chapters of his book, doesn't he, about how important yoga was for so many of the clients that he watched. And they did lots of experiments on it and showed that it was, X amount of times more effective than medication. And we know medication is just covering up. Yoga isn't covering up; it's actually processing through. But the experiments they did just blew my mind. And as a yoga lover such as yourself, that must have been a very exciting chapter for you.
It was, anytime that you can get a little bit of validation from a body of work like the body keeps the score, it's comforting. But yeah, I think with the body keeps the score, for me, it really brought an awareness to the chronic, like the pandemic that is trauma, and how that is the root of so much of the conflict and disease and depression and anxiety that we see in our society, is really from a disconnection from the body because of our upbringings or traumatic events that get in the way.
Yeah, it's so true. And like we mentioned earlier on about the trauma informed, um, wisdom that you can have is that you can walk out your front door and walk down the street and you can get a real sense of what may be happening for people. And maybe that opens up an opportunity to throw them a smile or give them a bit of safe eye contact, which could actually really help them in that moment. It's remembering that, like, you don't have to go out there and change the world. You just have to go out there and give someone a cheeky smile, it can really, really help somebody.
Yeah, I mean, kind eyes go a long way. I think what we're seeing today, with COVID globally, right? That is a traumatic event, and if people are not in a space or a community where they can, feel safe and supported and process what's happening, and then we're living behind our masks and we're not exchanging kind eyes, that will lead to an entire generation of people that have been traumatized by the pandemic. And so again, these practices, as simple as they may be, of like smiling and um, using healthy bits of eye contact, so simple but really so effective in healing trauma.
Yeah, it so is. And, as children, I can see this with my 4-year-old stepson that, they're looking for those cues of safety through your facial expressions, even the way you use your forehead. They talk a lot about that has an impact on your jaw and obviously eye contact, the voice that you use. Children, I watch him, he looks up at me and my partner, and you can see he's looking for that reassurance. He's looking for that eye contact. It's very beautiful to watch. And it's something that I think when you're really young is there. And obviously, if you're traumatized, then it really stops the child's ability to even look for those cues. And it shows as adults that over time, we tend to, life just seems to wear us down when we start to not look for those things and we start to feel quite unsafe. And I have to say, when you're say on a workshop and you've not even spoken to this person before and they're the other side of the room and you look over and you're both doing the same activity, say like drumming or something, and you crack, you smile at each other. And there's something very beautiful about having a deep connection in that moment with someone you've never spoken to in your life. So there's no language getting in the way, stories that you say getting in the way. And there's something very beautiful about
Yeah.
shared spaces where you look over and you smile. And I guess that could happen in a yoga setting too, couldn't it? In a group setting.
Oh, absolutely. And I've really, some of my favorite classes that I've taken over the years, um, are when the teacher either intentionally asks you to send somebody gratitude with your eyes in the class, or there's so much gazing over your shoulder, and you can just give your neighbor a gentle smile. Just little subtle things like that that really have a lasting impact.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. I literally just started a new job this week in retail, and I've gone from a world of wellness and into this whole other world of people who are all really lovely, but they have none of this informed knowledge. So it's been very special to go into that environment and maybe have an impact on the way I behave. Take an ownership of the way I'm moving, the way I'm behaving, the use of my voice, and try and make people feel very safe around this new person that they don't know. It's going to be a really good opportunity for me to test out all the things that people like us learn about on our journey. So I'm looking forward to bringing that in my first week. So it feels very, very special. So for you, Ravi, for anybody that's listening, who is going through a few things, is maybe debating going on their journey of yoga informed journey or healing journey or meditation journey, what would be your insight to people who are ready to take that leap? What would you say to them to do it in the best way to serve them as possible?
Yeah, I think starting somewhere. It's so easy to um, get anxious or bombarded by committing to this journey, but really embrace. If you have a transition in life, certainly take the time to sit with it, to feel it, and ultimately to find the space within to embrace it. We are so capable of handling change and uncertainty, and adding in a yoga practice, I think certainly helps all elements of life. I really do see yoga as this union of body and mind and spirit, and you don't have to be such an experienced practitioner to get the benefits of yoga, um, right? But it's choosing yoga, in a sense, is choosing discomfort. It's choosing growth. It's choosing finding your edges and then going a little bit beyond. And so I think for anybody, again, who's struggling to navigate their own challenges with life, whether that's emotionally, physically, financially, relationally, whatever it is, find the outlet that works for you, where you can be with discomfort with more ease, and show up for life in the way that you want to. And if yoga happens to be a practice that supports that, I obviously endorse it, but find the thing that's right for you.
Yeah, thank you. It's such a good metaphor too. I find through my yoga journey, it's been so much of it has been a metaphor for my life, and I've been able to use disciplines within the yoga practice to apply to my day-to-day life. Same with meditation, you can apply it to your life throughout the day through mindful awareness and 3-minute breathing spaces, and just getting yourself in a position and just feeling into the position. You can do that briefly. There's ways of integrating it throughout your day just to get a little bit more grounded in the craziness of, let's be honest, life is crazy most of the time, and it's very uncertain, and there can be a lot of fear around. But if you can stay embodied and feel safe within yourself, then that fear should affect you a little bit less and give you a bit more resilience, which is amazing. So I just want to thank you so much, Ravi, for joining me today.
Yeah, Owen, my pleasure to be here. Really enjoyed the conversation as always.
Yeah, thank you. It's been so beautiful, and I think we've really opened up a conversation on this, especially as two men. I know that the men's yoga classes all over the world, there's more and more of them, and it's really exciting to see. Even some of the all male classes look really amazing, and I'm really excited to see that grow over time. And that's why the conversation that we've had today is so vital for all our male listeners to know that it's cool, man. It's cool to carry, like I saw your post on Instagram. It's cool to carry your yoga mat around and feel proud of that.
It is the greatest feeling to really own it. Yeah, real men do yoga. I'll stand by that.
I love that. Well, don't go anywhere. We're gonna quickly find out what you are gonna get up to next and how we can find you online. I'm just gonna thank my patrons a second, and then I'll swing back around to you. I just want to say a huge thank you to all our amazing patrons on Patreon. Thank you so, so much. Your contributions really allow me more time to do what I love. This is my passion. And though I have other jobs, this is what matters most to me. And you're really, really helping facilitate that. Thank you. Thank you to Mike Morgan, Emerald McLeod, Maggie Palmer, Daniel Billing, Roland Chesters, Hannah Irvin, Karen Goodson, Julie Ferris, Stelly Stati, and of course, Stephen Truelove and Daryl Osborne, who are my co-hosts on my other show. Now, if I do get lots and lots of patrons, it's going to take a lot longer to say all those names, but that's fine. Just sign up and I will make sure I say your name on every show we do. You can sign up to the Man Cove Wellbeing community at the link in the description of this video, or visit www.patreon.com/MCW. There's a range of benefits there, and we do have news of our coaching coves coming either late 2020 or early 2021. I just need to do some training first, and we can open up some amazing groups for all of you amazing listeners. You can find out more about us at mancovewellbeing.com. So Ravi, what is next for you this year? I know it's hard to predict that this year with everything going on, but what does your future look like?
So the future is bright. I have not been so public about this, but my partner and I are actually in the process of attempting to purchase a yoga retreat center in Thailand. So really, again, getting so aligned personally and professionally. And as soon as the Thai borders open, that is our plan, is to go from India to Thailand, and to start creating a space where we can consistently offer programs for healing and wholeness and yoga and wellness and all the goodness that comes with that.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Well, once that's up and running, let's get you back on and we'll talk about the power of going to retreat centers and, like you said, taking those weeks out. And I'd love to talk to you more about that if we can later.
Definitely.
Amazing. So where's best to find you? What's your main social media platforms?
Yeah, so mostly on Instagram these days, at Rise with Ravi, posting content about yoga and my travels and mindfulness and trauma and all the good stuff we've covered today.
Amazing. Well, I'll pop links to the various places people can go to check you out. And I do, encourage people to come and follow you on Instagram, because I absolutely love, the posts that you're doing. There's lots of variety there and lots to think about too. You always make me think, oh, you're always asking questions. You really make me have a little deep dive on my answers. So thank you. That's really opening something up inside.
Yeah, of course.
Which is amazing. So thank you so much for joining me. And I look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Owen.
Thank you, my friend. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll be back next time for more Wellness Chitty Chat. We have an amazing set of guests coming up. I'm doing another interview today. Honestly, I've got some wonderful human beings lined up for you to listen to. They're amazing. So have a wonderful day. Stay safe, support your friends, and most of all, take care of your nervous system. It needs you. Shower it with love and give it all it needs. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time.